Okay, so what we want to do is we want to document our progress and we want to post on the Open Lab. We don't actually care at this point how much progress we've made. That's not the important point at this point in the semester. We will make progress. The important part is to document our progress and to talk about it. So I'm going to go over to my Scratch project here, and I'm going to just give it a name because it's going to look bad if it just says untitled right here. And so I'm going to call this my Scratch project. And one thing I want to do just so this doesn't look messy is I'm going to take this tab out and then I'm going to move it on its own, sort of in its own area. And if I double click on this little browser thingy, the browser top bar, it'll fill up the whole screen. You might not, your screen is going to be, mine is kind of shrunk because of the projector. So you might not want it to fill up the whole screen. You just want to make an image that is a good proportion. So for example, you don't want it to be like this where you can't see everything. And you don't want it to be like this either. You want to have a good, proportion to the image so you can see everything. So on the Mac, this is different on PC, but I'll show you guys some resources for PC and for Mac in a second. But on the Mac, the way that I do this is I hold Command Shift and I hit 4. So I'm holding Command and Shift down, and then I hit 4 on the keyboard, and then I let everything go. And that gives me this little target thingy. And what you can do with that is you can draw a box, and it'll make an image of whatever is in that box. But you can also hit the space bar, and the space bar turns into a little camera. And when you click on a window on your Mac, doesn't matter what it is, any application, when you click on a window, it makes a screenshot of that window. So you can see that screenshot here. If you don't like it, you can delete it. If you like it, you can click done. And it's gonna go onto your desktop on the Mac. Okay, so if I go to my Finder and I look at the desktop, there's that screenshot. It's right there. And if I hit space, I can preview the screenshot. One of the things that you may or may not like on the Mac by default is it adds a little shadow around the image. So it's kind of hard to see, but it'll stand out more on the Open Lab. But the image actually has this little border and it has this little shadow under it. So it makes it look like the window is floating. You might like the way that looks. If you don't like the way that looks, we can go back to Chrome. We're going to do the same thing, Command Shift and 4, and then space. And now I'm going to click on the window, but this time I'm going to hold the Option key before and as I click on the window. So I'm going to hold the Option key down, click on the window. I let go of the Option key, and now I've got this preview. Notice there's no shadow. Okay, so I'm going to click Done. That looks good. Now I'm going to go back here, and now I have the same screenshot, one with shadow and one with no shadow. Whichever one you prefer is fine. I tend to prefer no shadow, but sometimes shadow looks good. So the screenshot's going to save on your desktop by default. You're going to want to rename this so you remember what it is, because otherwise you're just going to be trying to remember the order, and that is not going to be that helpful. So I'm actually going to delete the first one I took and just name this Scratch Interface 1. And that way, by putting a 1 at the end, if I make more, I can make 2, 3. We haven't done that much on our Scratch interface, so we're not going to take a ton of screenshots. But we want to show all the work that we've done. So this is Scratch Interface 1. I'm going to take a couple more, and then we'll organize stuff. So I'm going to go back here, and I'm going to go over to my Costumes area. And that looks fine. I'm going to do Command Shift 4 and space, and I'm going to hold Option and click. And now I've got a screenshot. You don't have to look at it right now. If I just go like that, it'll go to the desktop. So I can go to the desktop. There's that new screenshot, and so I'll call this Scratch Interface 2. Okay, I'm gonna do one more. I'm gonna click on the full screen. Okay, so this is like the full version of the game that you could like share with somebody and they could play. And so I'm just gonna take a screenshot of this. Obviously, there's nothing here. Okay, so there's not that much to look at, but we're just practicing so that when we do have a lot of stuff here, we'll know what to do. So I'm gonna do the same thing, Command Shift 4 and space, and hold Option and click, and we've got our final screenshot. And so now I'm going to dock this Scratch window back in my main window, or my main Chrome thing. And I'll go back to the Finder. Here's my new screenshot. I'm going to rename this. So I'm going to hit enter. I'm going to call this Scratch Preview 1. So we have the interface that shows what we've built, and then we have the preview that shows what it looks like. If you've added like a lot more stuff, like some motion, some different costumes, then you're gonna wanna take a few more screenshots so people can see that. Actually, I think does he still, okay, he still moves. So technically I do have I can show him going like that. It's not that exciting, but I could screenshot that. Anyway, so you want to have at least 3 screenshots, or maybe 2 at the very least. But if you have a lot more, that's good. And so now we've got sort of our material for our blog, and so now we can go over and make our blog post. We just want to document the progress. So we want to show the images of what we're doing, and then we want to describe what we're working on. So again, this is an exercise. Okay, so this isn't, you wouldn't put this on your actual portfolio like I did this homework, but it's an exercise in describing what we're doing so that when you do make a portfolio, you'll have practice. You won't be writing a bunch of random stuff that sounds weird and not rehearsed, and or like you've never done it before. Okay, so we're gonna make a new post. So we're on the Open Lab. We're gonna click Post. And if you see this little box down here, you could get rid of that. If you want to have a summary, that's fine. I don't do that, but you can do it if you want. Any of these little boxes down here you can ignore. If your menu is not open, you may want to click on this button to open up the menu. Or if it's taking up too much space, you can close it and open it again. This red warning says you have to select a category. Okay, so we're gonna add a category. So if we go into our menu, go to Post, and look for categories, I'm going to add a category. And so this is going to be blog post, and or let's just call this documentation. So any of our blog posts that are just an update documentation, we'll just use this as our category. And if you want to add, actually I don't think you guys can add categories. So just use that one. Okay, so then add a title and just say Scratch Progress Week 1, or this is Week 2 actually. So Week 1 is Scratch, but Week 2 of the semester. And then we're gonna add in our images. So I'm just reviewing this. Hopefully you guys have done this a little bit. So there's 2 ways to add an image. One is you can drag and drop. That's usually what I do, but whatever your preference is fine. So I'm gonna open my Finder window, and I'm gonna move this to the side, and I'm just gonna drag this guy right here. So when you see that blue bar, you can drag it in there. And then for each image, we wanna add a little description. Oh, we have this is a new thing. I haven't seen this before actually. So when you add an image, it wants you to add alternate text. This is just some text that takes place of the image if either it doesn't load, or for people who are, vision, who, have vision impairment, then they'll use a screen reader and it'll say this is what the image is of. So you guys will probably skip this, but you should add this in here. So alternative text, we can say my Scratch interface with my first sprite. And then we're going to say something very similar down here. So we're going to say this is my first day programming with Scratch. I added in my player art that I made in Piskel and worked on adding movement to the player. Okay, 2 sentences, very straightforward, to the point. Feel free to elaborate and talk about your art or talk about anything else that you want to, but that's all we really need, just something to situate us. And keep in mind that when we're writing documentation, when we're writing stuff for our portfolio, we're not writing to me, the professor, or to the class. we're writing to the general audience, somebody who doesn't know anything about what's going on. So that's how we want to write these things, because eventually that's how they'll be read when when you're making games and people want to learn about your process, they're going to read your blog. And so, that's what we're practicing for. Okay, so the other way to add an image is to use this little plus button over here, add block, and then use the image block. It's one of the main blocks, so it usually comes up here. But if you don't see it, you can just type in image in the search bar, and you'll get that block. And then you click the upload button. I actually left my images on the desktop. I'm going to move them in a second, but I want to do my interface too. And let's add some alt text, the Scratch costume editor. And we'll say, I learned how to add multiple costumes to the player sprites. And we have one more image I'm going to drag and drop just to make it go a little faster. Okay, the Scratch game preview. And here we're going to say this is the Scratch preview. Not much happening so far. Okay. So that's it. That's our blog for this week. We're going to take a look at what that looks like and make sure it looks okay. So this is the preview. And that all looks good. So we're going to close this and publish and click publish. And then this is the last step that you guys didn't do last week. So I'm going to go over it now. So to submit this, we're going to use Brightspace. So Brightspace is just for grading. There's a few reasons I use it for grading. One of the main ones is for you guys' privacy. So Brightspace, has, security, and only I can access your assignments and stuff like that. And that's important for legal reasons and also, just general reasons. So we're going to use Brightspace to submit the work, even though most of what we're looking at is going to be online so you guys can see each other's work. But Brightspace is where I'm going to do the grading. So you're just going to copy this link, and that's all you submit on Brightspace. So once you copy that link, go back to Brightspace. I'm going to go into Learner View. And you can go to Assignments. There's a few different ways to get here, but this is the way I usually go. Go to Assignments, look for the assignment that you are submitting. This is actually Blog Assignment 2. Blog Assignment 1 is what you guys did last week. So you can submit that when you want to, but it's not due until next week, just because obviously I wasn't here last week. So Blog Assignment 1 is actually our Piscal assignment that you guys did before. This is Blog Assignment 2. And I'm going to fill out the rest of this stuff soon. I'm still catching up a little bit. So we go to Blog Assignment 2. And there's no rubric yet. We looked at that a little bit earlier in class. I'm going to add that. But the rubric will be basically the same as the one for Assignment 1. I just have to edit a couple of things. But what you're going to do here is just paste that link to OpenLab. That's all you have to do. So I'm going to hit Command V. You can, right-click and paste, however you do that. And that's it. You're just going to click Submit. I'm going to go through and grade it. It's really just like, making sure you got all the different parts. As I mentioned earlier, if you forget to add a part, I'm just going to tell you, and you'll see that you didn't get those points. And if you want to fix it and resubmit it, just do that, and I'll regrade it. So I'm going to click Done here. And that's it. So you can see there's a submission here. You're all good to go. So yeah, that's it for today. I'm gonna, give you guys can work on Scratch, but make sure to post before you leave. Obviously you have until next week to post, but there's you don't have to complete anything in Scratch before you post the documentation. So you guys can post your documentation before you leave class, and then you can keep working on your Scratch project until next week. But that way you don't have to worry about, being late with the assignment or whatever. Again, it's not due until next week, but that's part of why we have lab time, so you guys can make sure that you are, turning stuff in. Okay, any questions? All right, I'm gonna stop the recording and I will upload that.